When the world of convenience eventually caught up with music, we gained an awful lot as musicians. We gained like like it meant you didn't have to go and go down to a studio to record a Hammond or even drums, or you could just sit there in the house and do it there. But I think we've also lost a great deal in the process. Like even though we have the convenience of, I want a Wurlitzer, and you put the Wurlitzer on, and the Fender Rhodes, and it became clear to me when I recorded the Vampires album, the 8-byte stuff, because I used a real Hammond B3 on that one. I'd never really thought about it before, because even in 8-bytes we didn't use real organs. We always used DX7s or D50s or whatever was the latest organ out in the software world. And so I never really thought about it. And I'd put Hammond organ on. I'd had instruments with organs on before, and I'd put them on. They sounded fine to me. I didn't even think about it. It sounds like an organ to me, Or samplers, this is a B3 sample, and you'd play it. Yeah, that's totally cool. And then I set this Hammond up of Brett loaned me the Hammond and a Leslie speaker. And I set it up in my basement. We put a couple of mics on it, and I started to play it, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. And I thought, oh my God, this is what a fucking Hammond should sound like. This is insane. It was unbelievable, dude. It was insane. It was a whole thing. It was almost like a spiritual experience. Like, that's what a Hammond should be. Fucking hell, It was like, and then I put on the Hammond plugins that I'd been using for the last 2 years next to the Hammond, and it was embarrassing. Really, it was literally embarrassing. It was almost like empty. It was like an empty sound. It was like there was nothing in it. It was just like, it was almost like this. Imagine a Hammond being a tube full of like putty or sausage meat or something like that. It's all, the digital version didn't have any sausage meat or putty in the tube. It was just this thin glass tube, and it was like really brittle sounding, and like it was just embarrassing. And I actually couldn't believe it. I was gobsmacked. I was like, dude, because I'd never really thought about it. Why would I think about that when it says Hammond on my sampler? And so all these instruments, the Wurlitzers and the Fender Rhodes, and like all these things that have a real version of them, I would suggest to everybody, if you can possibly do it, I would always recommend to use the real thing, because in certain terms you're making yourself a copy, because it isn't actually the real thing. It's a copy, and therefore you're a copy. And we really shot ourselves in the foot, because we tuned our album down to A432 for reasons which there's videos on this series that'll let you know why we did that. But that meant, we didn't even think about it, but that meant that now we can't use real instruments, real pianos and real Wurlitzers and real Fender Rhodes, which I've got. But now we can't use them, because you can't tune them things down to A432. So we were forced to use, there's not a lot of keyboards on the album anyway, but we were forced to use software instruments that just didn't sound good on the thing. So we sent them through an amp. We put them out of, through an amp. And that was the best we could get with it. We saw all the keyboards you hear on the album are actually sent through amps. And speakers, so that we can mic them up, and so that we can get more of an authentic sound with them. Because by themselves, they just, everything that you put on this album that isn't real, because of the way we recorded it, it sticks out like a sore thumb. We even tried putting synthesizers on it, and I would send Paul over some synthesizer parts that I did on some of the overdubs later on in the project, and we were looking at each other on FaceTime going, it's just ridiculous. It just sounded stupid, actually. And so software instruments, although they're incredibly convenient, let's be real clear and say that they really don't sound like the real thing. They really don't. Like, it's nothing like it. If you don't play it next to the real thing, sure, you can get away with it, and it's kind of like a hint of it. It's like, like pretending it. But when you actually A/B them, if you want to be the real thing, then you should probably use real instruments. And that's what we found on this project, that anything we tried to put on that wasn't real, or anything that was, it just didn't live up to the size of the recording, because of, we don't have anything fake on it. And any keyboards that we did, that we had to tune down to A432. That's the only reason why we did it. Otherwise I would have done it, with natural instruments. We had to tune down to A432, and the only way we could do that was with software instruments. And all we did to counteract it, to make it as good as we could, we sent them through amps. And that's about as good as we could get it. It sounds better through an amp than it does not through an amp. It sounds more real. But it's still, when we recorded a Whole New World, we'd say, with Tom doing the... Tom Brislin doing the keyboards, and we used all real instruments on there, real organs, real pianos, real Fender Rhodes, real Wurlitzers. It was all real stuff. There's a big difference in that than using software instruments. So I understand, it's very convenient. I agree, and it's not really something I've thought about before. I've just used them. I haven't even thought about it. Never even crossed my mind. But when I A/B'd them, it's definitely, it's definitely a fake version of what the real thing is.